Right guys, welcome back to another cook and our maiden voyage for the KJ3 on the channel. And I think it's going to be a cook that does it justice. So we're going to do Char Siu pork belly. There are a few other bits going into the dish, but that's the main part. So we're going to do it kind of low and slow for the first couple of hours just to render out some of that fat in the pork belly. We have it in a marinade, which I'll talk about in a little second. Then we will see whether I feel like giving it a sear or not. It would be nice to get a little bit of crispness on the skin, but I don't want it to turn into a fire fest either. So we'll deal with that once we come to it. But first, I'm gonna go and grab it out of the fridge and we'll talk a little bit about the marinade. Right, here is our pork belly. We've had it in the fridge overnight. So I've done this about 8 o'clock last night. So it's been in there for about 15, 16 hours-ish. If you don't have that time for it, try and get it in first thing in the morning and then cook this for dinner in the evening. If it is maybe 8 hours, it should probably be okay. I've used pork belly strips here, so they're a little bit thinner rather than using like a full pork belly. It'll take a little bit longer for that marinade to seep in. So this kind of saves you a little bit of time. So go for strips if you can't afford to leave it overnight. It'll just speed up the process a little bit. So let's talk about the sauce. And I'm going to overlay footage of it being made here while I read the ingredients of this because I can't remember them all. For our Char Siu sauce, we start off with half a cup of ketchup mayonnaise. So that's like a sweetened soy sauce. If you can't find it, just use light soy sauce. Next up then, we've got half a cup of hoisin sauce. Then in with a 1/4 cup of Char Siu cooking wine. You can get this in the supermarkets, it's pretty readily available, whilst it might sound like a more exotic ingredient. Next up then, in with a 1/4 cup of dark brown sugar. And a couple of seasonings. We have a teaspoon of 5 spice and about a 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper. Then we have a couple of tablespoons of honey and about 3 cloves of garlic minced down. And then lastly, about half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of sesame oil. No way was I remembering all of that. That's why I keep a notebook. So we mixed all that up. Then we put our pork belly into a Ziploc bag. If you have a vac pack, use it. We took about 1/2 to 2/3 of a cup of that sauce and put it in here as the marinade. We've kept the rest of it to the side. And we're going to use some of that for brushing on while we're cooking. And then the rest of it we're going to use actually to serve with it. So we now need to get this out and get it onto the barbecue to smoke. And this is where things get messy. Oh, it smells awesome. That wine is strong. There's no clean way to do this. Just go in with our hands. Get each strip out. Try and get as much of that marinade off as possible. Okay, at this point I'll try and keep clean hand, dirty hand. I'm gonna go in with a bit of a towel just to try and dab off some of that excess again. Doesn't matter too much if there's still a little bit on there because we are going to rub these, so I actually want a little bit of binder. I think our finish is going to be a little bit better if we can have them relatively dry on the surface. We're going to give them a little bit of a seasoning. Most of the flavour is going to come from that marinade, but we're going to go on with just a little tiny dusting of the salt and pepper rub from Smoky Carter. I'm not looking for complete coverage, just a little dusting over it should be fine. Get them with your hands, grab each one, give it a little going over. Okay, so that's them. Good to go on the barbecue. We'll move over, I'll tell you how everything's set up, and then we'll get them on the smoke before the wasps eat it all. Okay, so KJ's been fired up for probably about 40 minutes since it's first firing. I wanted to try and give it a bit of time just to come up to temperature. Any little residues around there in there will all be burnt off by now. Temperature is sitting at about 150. It's kind of stabled out around 140, 150. I have everything built up inside it, so fire was lit. Then we've gone with the slow roller since we're doing this first part of the cook sort of lower. I'm going to put a drip pan in there and then put these on the highest level. We're going to put a bit of smoke in first as well, so I do need to do a few little bits to try and get it set up. So open it up, move this grate out of the way, get the top off the slow roller so we can get access to our fire. I have a couple of chunks of pear wood, so I'm going fruit wood with these. Again, pork doesn't need anything crazy. Slow roller lid back on. I'll put a drip tray in there. A little bit of water in it to stop anything sticking. Cooking grate back on. And now we can get our pork belly on. We'll just go on over the top of the drip tray. Leave a little gap in between them. I'll just shut down our lid and let them roll for a while. Okay, pork belly has had 2 hours of smoke. Happy with the colour of it. There's quite a good bit of the fat has rendered it as well. If we go in, like temperatures wise, it is well cooked, but I do think I want to give it a bit of a sear. We'll get it off onto a rack to cool, and we need a chance to set up with the barbecue to do the rest of the dish. We'll go ahead and get them lifted off. I'm going to take the full slow roller system out I'll just stick it into one of the other barbecues to cool down a bit. And we're just going to set it up for full direct, but I'm going to keep the grills nice and high. Before we get the pork belly back onto the grill again, we have a couple of little pak choi here that we're going to slice in half and grill off. And I'm going to make a little bit of a base to kind of go on them as well. First off, I've just given them a quick wash. Now I'm just going to slice right down the middle to put them in half. And that's what we're going to kind of brush our base on here. That's what we're going to grill them this side down. So to make our little marinade, I'm going to grate in a clove of garlic, a couple of tablespoons of light soy sauce, and then a teaspoon or so of sesame oil. Just give that a little whoosh together with your brush. We can paint it on. Now we'll keep that there because we'll use it again once we get them on, get them grilled. As we're flipping them, we can base a little bit more on, keep building up that flavour. Push those to the back, get them out of the way. The only other thing we need to do then is, this is the rest of our sauce. So I'm just going to put that into a little saucepan that we can get it warmed up. Now I can go into the barbecue as well and warm up while we're doing the pork belly. Okay, let's move over to the grill. We'll get everything cooked off and then we eat. Okay, we're nice and hot all over. We're on our highest level because we don't want anything too extreme heat-wise. Again, the aim is to colour these, not get them charred. So we'll go on first with our pot of sauce. Get it starting to warm through. It doesn't need to be boiling or bubbling, but just nice and warm. And we'll start to get a couple of our pork belly bits on, just to try them out. We'll go with some of these smaller bits. Kind of 3 or 4 at a time, until we see what happens with them. We'll get a little bit of that sauce, brush it onto them. Again, I don't want too much of it to drip down into that fire and to cause like flare-ups. Don't mind a little bit of flame as long as things don't go too crazy. And just keep it turning pretty regularly. Once you see it starting to bubble, get it turned on with a little more sauce. Just give it one last flip to try and seal that side with the sauce. Happy with that. Sauce is tacked up to it. It's bubbling a little bit, it hasn't blackened, but it's nice and glossy. That's what we want. So we'll do the rest of the pork belly off in the same way. Once we're happy with it, we'll lift it off onto the rack. We can probably get our pak choi on now and get it going. This other side of the grill is a bit cooler. So cut side down for it. So that looks good to me. So those pieces can come off. We'll get the rest of it on. Right, you give it a go. It smells unreal, I have to say. You can smell that kind of the wine coming through on it a little bit. Cut a bit off here, give it a try. There's a little bit of pink in the meat from the smoke. Got a bit of that pak choi as well. Here goes. Man, that sauce is killer. There's so many different flavours going on in that. I think that rice wine hits you first. It kind of clears out the way. The smokiness then comes through, which is really nice. It hangs around for a little while and then the sweetness starts to build in it. I was a bit worried it was just going to be sticky sweet the whole way through. Not even close. And in that kind of rich fat of the pork belly, has pretty rendered out pretty well. Added some of these little pickled onions on it just to give it a bit of a bite. Again, I was worried that it was going to be really sweet. Yeah, that one's a winner and a keeper. If you really don't like pork belly, you can give it a go, but if you don't like pork belly, really it will work with anything. You're supposed to use a kind of fattier meat for it, but if you're the type of person who just wants it on chicken, you just want that Char Siu chicken, go for it. But pork is the main one, so try and go fatty pork, so pork shoulder or pork belly at a push. You can go loin or tenderloin, but either way I think it works really well with it. So full recipe will be in the description below as always. If you do give it a go, tag me in your photos over on Instagram. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next video.